I'm definitely not going to go at JC's pace, so everyone can sit down, relax for a moment. Yeah, it was amazing, but I feel like I need to have a yoga session afterwards. I feel smarter-ish, but I can't absorb it. You're right. Yeah, thank you. So, oh, there's my slide clicker. All right, now hopefully I'll be smarter. My slides aren't as cool as yours. So what is Ursa and what are some of the trends happening in space? The beautiful thing about space-based data is it's getting to a point now where it actually can inform you on market trends before they're happening. And I'm going to need a water at some point. I'm sorry. Thank you. And the beauty is we'll go through some of the trends that have enabled this new technology evolution. But the nice thing is this is not considered insider trading. So you're going to see a large growth both, and maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But in the commercial space area, there's this thing called Space 2.0. And Ursa is a company that's in Space 3.0. And what that means is we're bringing in all these different commercial satellite providers to create the analytics that will hopefully give you the answers so you can make trades on the trends. I think earlier today, the product head over at Tinder was talking about the things that women can bring to the industry, so thank you for that tee up. At Ursa, we're actually 50% women in a predominantly technical field. We're really proud of that. We're extremely excited for both our male and our female recruits. All of our employees, we believe, are fantastic, and they're showing us that that's true. But we have had some of the nice, unique advantages of bringing on an executive team, myself included, that are technically female. Let me rephrase that. We are female and in the technical field. No disrespect to transgender, but we are, yes, both technically female and female in the technical field. We've actually decided to go where the talent is. So instead of having one location, we've actually put locations in places like Ann Arbor, Washington, D.C., Ithaca, New York. A lot of university focus because what we're doing takes significant technical expertise. But it's been fantastic in the new ages of Google Hangouts, et cetera, to be able to have this distributed workforce and take advantage of talent wherever it is. So I'm actually going to stand up, but if I am outside of the camera range, you'll tell me. All right, so financial services are using alternative data, and I guess I've seen the Battlefin people here. So this is definitely where they are excelling in helping bring alternative data to the financial services market. And satellite data is equally part of that. And what is it? Why are we doing it? Originally, we didn't do it because most people, unless they were a foreign government or a US government, didn't have the staff to mine this data. The data wasn't available, and more importantly, it was never made relevant. So now, as I said, there's a Space 2.0, which is this massive release of satellite launches. So we're looking at something like over 600 small sats are going to launch this in the next 5 years. I had another chart that we didn't put in here because I didn't want to bore you, but it's gone through how commercial space has literally taken off exponentially. And actually, there is a little bit of one right here. So there is a 672 commercial satellite backlog for 2018 alone. If I look at what happened in 99 to 2018, that's how many launched in that time period are now launching in 1 year. So the breadth and the ability of what can be seen from space is truly spectacular. And now with things like the cloud and distributed software, the ability to take insights out of that data is truly mind-boggling. We haven't even gotten close to truly realizing the power of this data when combined with your import-export data or your other indications and warnings and trends that you have in your current portfolio. But as time persists, there will be the killer apps, and maybe those will be posted in StockTwit rooms and all the other sorts of things. So what are the things you can see from space? I'm not talking about monitoring, looking over at your iPhone, but that won't work now with the iPods, right? But we are filling in missing information. So Ursa originally started measuring the floating top storage tanks in China and providing that out on a weekly basis. We did that because the numbers were only released on a monthly basis, and people in New York wanted to have better insights, something they could trust, something that was repeatable. And remote sense data is not human manipulated. So as wonderful it is to pick up the phone and call your best friend in another city, we now have the ability to take a satellite, take an image, give you that information, and repeatably every single week. And we could take that image every single day if required, multiple times a day. So Ursa's in particular, although there are a number of other companies in this space as well, but I'm here to show a use case for it and the market trends it can help you see. But Ursa, we task over 15 different satellites every single day. We don't own these. We're like the Uber. It's not a trademark violation. We're like the Uber for space in that we can sit there, task, we get the data in, we do the processing, we fuse those analytics with the other key data sets to help give you those indications, warnings, trends, or your alpha. Some of the great things, so shows opaque, it gives you insights into areas of the globe where you didn't have it before. So we're measuring the Middle East, we're measuring China, we're measuring the Caribbean, Venezuela, other countries where you might not have been able to get accurate information. And we personally use synthetic aperture radar. I'm not going to go into too much great technical detail on this. If anyone is really bored afterwards, I can sit you down, give you a couple tequilas, walk through this in great detail. There, all right. But synthetic aperture radar over standard electro-optical, or as they're calling it, Earth observation, can be day, night, all weather. And that's definitely preferred because there are great things going on when there's clouds on this fabulous planet of ours. And we can still see through those clouds to capture the phenomenology. The EO data, the electro-optical, it's fantastic for your brains. It makes sense. It's a picture like on your camera or your iPhone. The SAR data is active data, and it creates blobs. It's basically seeing the world like a bat or a shark. But we have processing algorithms and other detection algorithms that say what we're looking at and what it means. So, oh, wow, that did not turn out well. I'm just going to summarize what this slide says. Basically, why are we able to do this? So I think I touched on it a little bit, but we have the cloud now. There's massive distributive processing. There are now, at least in our virtual constellation, over 15 satellites we can use. There are 600 satellites launching, all from AIS to specific parts of the RF spectrum that will show you something different about this world and about how people are using bandwidth in this world. There's the points of presence from companies like OneWeb. There's AIS from companies like Spire. All of these things, and AIS is basically when a ship is moving and they want to make sure they don't hit each other, it's their collision avoidance system. So all of these things have come together. We've got the cloud, we're now processing it, and now we have the customers in the alternative data section that are telling us what they want to see from space. Not that we can change what happens on the Earth and from space, but it's a great way to understand your Earth and understand the impacts. So what we do here, we task the 15 satellites, we collect it, we literally are doing these direct measurements, we fuse it, and then we provide results. Some of the things that this industry has started with, counting cars, so people use those as proxies for GDP, or how is the Christmas season going to work this year? Are we seeing, and one of the things I learned, which I thought was fascinating, is some satellites image at noon, some image at 8 a.m., some image at 6 p.m., and there's a different category of shopper at each one of those. So surprisingly, the lucky moms that are at home with their kids, they shop, when no one else is in the store. The millennials either come in the beginning, lunch, or at the end of the day. And myself, I use Amazon, so I'm not one of those people in the parking lot, unless it's Starbucks. The other thing is natural disasters. This lends itself very nicely to flooding and disaster response, showing people what's happened after there's been a huge emergency or a hurricane, a tsunami, any sorts of large fires. And then ship tracking, airport, understanding the flows going in and out of airports, as well as oil storage measurements, which are our flagship products. So this is actually a SAR image, and this is showing you how many barrels are in there. So the pink is the top of the tank, the blue is the actual level of the floating top, and the green is the base. So we take these images, over 150 images a week around the globe at 10,000 different sites. And we measure 10,000 different oil tanks. So it's pretty neat. And we have a nice GIF, but this was a PDF, so you don't get to see us flying through it. Nor do you probably want to, but I find it fascinating. So this is what we're doing. 3.6 billion barrels of oil measured every single week. That was not achievable even a year ago. And so this starts to give you an idea. A year ago, we measured 100 tanks. And today, we're now measuring 10,000 tanks. Tomorrow, we'll see. For you all, this is where it really matters. So why do you care? Right now, most of the headlines are on 1/3 the actual oil that's out there, but 2/3 is in oil inventories. So you care about oil inventories because they're leading indicators. Cushing, Oklahoma, great example. So we are monitoring Cushing, Oklahoma inventory levels, and they release their numbers on Wednesday, and we release our numbers on Monday at 9:30. And so what this does is our numbers have a 0.98 correlation to Cushing, Oklahoma's. Now, our numbers can be absolute, but when we do the rounding averages, we have this correlation, which means if you had our product and you now knew the trend, you could trade on it before the numbers got released from Cushing, Oklahoma. I think that's sort of interesting. Iranian inventories. So November 4th, sanctions go into place. What are the Iranians doing? What are we seeing? And so this is, yet again, you go over to our fantastic remote sense data, and we are able to actually see that since October, the inventories of the Iranian oil have been going up. And we have another exciting story from my perspective coming a little later. And by the way, if you have questions, I will be done with the bulk of the talk, and you can ask as many as you like as well. So this was a fantastic one. And we have one of our customers to thank for showing us this, but we are getting better at our own data analytics internally. But this was an interesting thing. So the Jose complex in Venezuela. I don't know if you really can see this. Oh, I'm out. Sorry. So here are the upgrader facilities, and that basically is a lot of what goes out of Venezuela. And then here are the individual tanks. So what we started noticing is the inventories, those upgraders went down, and they weren't producing the same amount of oil. And then what that meant was that we were not getting shipments of the dirty crude from Venezuela into Houston. And that also meant the Caribbean was no longer getting those shipments as well. So we had, I think, over a 30-day warning ahead of time before the market responded on that. And then the impact, of course, to the Caribbean, as we start seeing down here, is there was less inventory. Now, the Caribbean's a great staging area for exports. And so with the decline in Venezuela, what will be the impact to the Caribbean? And you're seeing a lot of private equities, companies and hedge funds starting to invest in the Caribbean to make that more of a transport for the shales from the US. There we are on that one. So our US exports, especially of the shale, are increasing, but the pipelines are not being built fast enough. And so in the Permian, which we are monitoring, oh, that I did badly. Let's see if she can save me. Thank you, Carissa. Oh no. All right, here we go again. So in the Permian, what we've started to do is we're also doing well monitoring. So we're seeing which wells are active, because they will give us insight into, are there upcoming labor shortages? If the pipeline capacity can't be built in time, we're also seeing the gas flaring. So when the well completion is over, they flare off the gas, and we're able to start tracking. That's a heat map over there on the well flaring. So there are a number of remote sensed indications and warning that are talking both to the labor shortages or the oncoming oil that will be released out of the sands in the Permian Basin. So it's a fascinating way to start measuring the supply and volume rate determiners. This is my favorite story, only because I'm a nerd, I believe. But what you have right here are the ship tracks coming in and out of Karg Island. And then what you have off the coast of Karg Island is one of the ships. And what we've been starting to monitor are ships leaving Iran, coming up to other non-Iranian flagships and offloading their oil and going into other ports. The other nice thing, though, on the previous chart, we did see the oil inventories in Iran going up because they are not selling as much oil, but this is another way for them to get around sanctions. So for companies that need to maintain their compliance, we also have the ability to do some dark ship detection in the region. So at the end of the day, there's a whole new commercial satellite operations and satellites that are up there now that are measuring phenomenologies that will have direct impact and give you the indications and warnings for future trades and what is the market and what the market is doing. So as we grow, as others in the market grow, as those 626 satellites launch just this year alone, you'll start seeing more indicators, and people will come to a point where they will fuse that data with your other data sets to give you that meaningful arbitrage. And we have the lovely Allison here as well. So if you have any further questions, Allison's here, I'm here, and we have Jeff Craig to thank for the slide deck. And he had a much better monologue than I did because he's our energy analyst and not the CTO. But I highly recommend you go check out his blog on ursaspace.com. Thank you.
Pardon?
Yeah. Does anyone have
Anyone
any questions?
questions for Melanie?
So I thought this was fascinating. So do you guys have a lot of insurance clients who are like?
So the question from the audience is, do we have a number of insurance clients? At this point, we are starting to work with a strategic insurance company, but most of ours have been big banks, energy companies, hedge funds, and then some unusual smaller players as well. But from an insurance and from a compliance perspective, this certainly is the technology for doing it. Yeah. So one of the interesting things that we are just starting on the development front, but is not part of our commercial product suite. So again, our oil inventories is our primary product that Allison helps us get out in the market. But we are actually going through some of the past data on areas and looking to see if those claims were valid. So it's a great triage. So if there is a huge flood, you can see damage to roofs and roads and understand how far the floodwaters actually were. So was someone's car legitimately at their house, or are they just making a claim because everyone else is making a claim? Anything else? Thank you all for having me.